Hi, I'm Nicole Nash with the City of Torrance. Before there was a Torrance, before California was even a state, America was still just an idea taking shape. Now, 250 years later, that idea has grown, evolved, and been redefined generation after generation. But you don't have to look far to see that history in action. Right here in Torrance, the story of this city mirrors the story of America. Growth, change, challenge, and resilience. In this episode, we're talking with a local historian to connect the past to the present and to uncover the stories that helped shape the community we know today. Kurt, if you want to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your work at the Torrance Historical Society.
My name is Kurt Weideman, and I've lived in Torrance for over 60 years. My family moved here in 1954 when my father accepted a job with the Torrance Unified School District. He was an elementary school teacher. And so I basically grew up in Torrance, and I've been involved in many civic organizations, the Torrance Cultural Arts Foundation, the Torrance Historical Society, the Torrance Public Library Foundation, and I've been a planning commissioner for 7 years. I sat on the city council for 5. And I am currently on the Historical Preservation Commission, which is right up our alley right here, especially talking about the history of Torrance, because I love talking about the history of Torrance.
I love that. It's like you've gotten to live so much of your own history in Torrance and been involved in so many things, and now you're kind of getting to look through the past, like even farther back.
Well, one of the mottos of the Historical Society, of course, is to preserve the past for present and future generations. You know our work on the names on the wall with Dennis. That's very important because 3 generations from now, this firsthand knowledge of Torrance, at least from the 50s to the present day, is within me, but to impart that to future generations, my grandchildren, great-grandchildren, is important to me. Yeah. And I think it is important because I think Torrance has a very rich history. And we're going to talk about it, I know.
Yes. Do you want to, for people who may not know, explain what the names on the wall is, what our wall is here in Torrance?
I would be happy to. However, Nicole, I think you should do an entire podcast on that with Dennis. But Names on the Wall is dedicated, there's 152 names on the wall as of this last Monday. We added Jack Hormel. And those are all servicemen who died during wartime. Residents of Torrance, had backgrounds in Torrance, and so on and so forth. And so what Dennis and I are doing are picking up the gauntlet, if you will, from the originator of this project, Jerry Ronan, a much beloved man in Torrance history, 40 years at Torrance High School. We picked up the gauntlet, and we're writing it, and now we're compiling photos and biographies of every single one of the names on the wall. And right now we're sitting at about 75%.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Those are some of my favorite stories that I've gotten to cover with you guys. And I know this last Monday was such a cool thing. We saw them actually engraving it on the wall. And I know that one of our producers interviewed the engraver himself, who was in the Navy, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. How does it feel to be a part of this group of people that care so much about that?
Well, of course, it's very satisfactory. There's something inside that feels satisfaction knowing that you're doing a job that's meaningful.
I love that. Yeah. Okay, let's go back a little bit for Torrance.
Okay.
Can you tell me about the founding of Torrance and how the city's beginnings aligned with early American values?
Torrance was founded in 1912. It was the idea of a visionary named Jared Sidney Torrance. Jared Sidney Torrance and the Dominguez Land Company bought 3,500 acres from the Dominguez family to build a modern industrial city. A modern industrial city that would mimic what was happening in the United States back then in the late 1890s, and that was the City Beautiful program. And the City Beautiful program was one of a planned community. Torrance isn't just a suburb because Los Angeles kept going out. Torrance was a planned community. And Jared Sidney Torrance got the best design architects in the world to have his vision realized, and that was Frederick Olmsted Jr., the son of Frederick Olmsted, i.e. the creator of the Great White City and the Chicago Exhibition and the Central Park, among other things.
Wow.
And the mall in Washington, D.C. So Olmsted Jr. also hired the architect, whose name I can't think of right at the moment, but very famous architect, to design the civic buildings. And so what Olmsted wanted to do was have a planned city that segregated industrial, commercial, and residential. Therefore, all these, Jared Sidney Torrance sat on at least 60 board of directors. He's well connected. And he got these industries to come into Torrance as the backbone of the city, such that, so once again, to the layout of the city, the industries would be on the eastern side, i.e., all that smoke would go to Carson. Commercial right there in the center where downtown Torrance is now, and the residential to the west. Along these lines, Olmsted created streets with gas and electric, and he planted thousands of trees. He made El Prado mimic the Washington, D.C. Mall, if you will. If you go to the top of the hill where Torrance High is, you look straight down El Prado to the mountains. That was his kind of mini D.C. Mall, if you will. Why did they do this? Why did he want to do this, sitting on 60 board of directors? Because at the time, there was a lot of labor unrest. 1912s, remember they bombed the LA Times building. And he wanted to create a workers' paradise, an industrial site that was removed from that kind of turmoil, if you will. Unfortunately, though, it didn't really work. Because what we had, when they brought the Pacific Electric down here to where the depot is now, the workers could jump on the train. They could still live in Inglewood or South LA or wherever they lived and take the train straight down. And so all this beautiful planned community really, really didn't work in the beginning. And then, of course, World War I came, and there was an immediate depression. There was almost a COVID, Spanish flu came. So things really, he wasn't selling very many lots. But what happened was, two things happened in 1921, two very significant points in Torrance's history. That was, they incorporated. 1921, they became a city. 1921, oil was discovered. Oh my gosh. One of the most significant moments in all of Torrance history. Those two things combined, though. Because what was happening was, after oil was discovered, had they not incorporated, LA was leaching up, annexing other places. They had to build that strip that went all the way down to the harbor. And they were looking at Torrance. Boy, they were going to have them hit the mother lode. But we incorporated, we saved them off.
That's awesome.
But back to the American values, though. So what are we seeing? We're seeing planned communities that was popping up in the late 1890s. We saw an area where a community provided services to the people, water and electric and fire departments and libraries and hospitals. This wasn't necessarily the case in company-owned towns such as they had back east, coal mining towns. It was a progressive era. They were trying to be progressive. They were trying to give the people a community, a sense of community, such that they could build their families here and so on and so forth, and provide them jobs. And they did that quite well. So oil hit, and I think another significant thing that you don't read about very much in the histories of Torrance, and that is during the 1930s, Torrance undertook annexation on their own, not unlike what LA was doing. For example, they went north. They got the north track there. They went west. They went all the way to Rolling Hills, which has resulted in the fact that Torrance is now the 8th most populous city in all of LA County.
I was just going to say, off of what you were saying, of how it kind of was built to be somewhere that people could live and work and have everything in one place.
Yes.
And ever since we're starting working here, I've heard so many people say that they want to make Torrance the best place to live, work, and play.
Yep.
So it seems like that is a common ideal or value that has been here all along.
Well, it helps that we do have that sense of community, and we can go back to quite a few things that are examples of that. But walking along the development of Torrance after annexation, remember another thing that happened was World War II, sharing American values, just like the rest of the United States. We were filled with patriotism. But what also happened was we had these industries, U.S. Steel, that could support the war effort. So that war mobilization, we were doing what everybody else in the United States was doing. We were sharing those same values. But the fact of the matter is that built up these defense and aerospace industries, the likes of which I worked with one for 26 years in aerospace. And so that developed, that mobilization. We were sharing the American values, and we were very patriotic, like I said. But then what happened? After the war, the GI Bill. 1946, 1948, Torrance only had 18,000 residents. But in the 50s, the GI Bill gave the opportunity for those returning GIs to bring up their families in a city that they could work in and that had all the services that they required. And Torrance exploded. The population quadrupled in 10 years.
Wow.
They were building 3 schools a year throughout the 1950s to accommodate the baby boomers like me that grew up during the 50s. That expansion, the quadrupling of Torrance, the fact that another shared value within the suburbs, Del Amo Center. At one time, one of the biggest shopping malls in the entire United States. However, I grew up on Sonoma Street. When I was growing up, across from Madrona, there were strawberry and flower fields.
Really?
Yeah.
Where that parking lot by the mall is?
The whole thing.
Oh, wow.
The whole thing. There wasn't any Del Amo Mall. It was
Yeah.
all agricultural. Well, agriculture kind of went on the wane because they were building all these houses, and now they had this shopping center. So we were mirroring the rest of the United States with that shopping center, but boy, we did the biggest one.
Yeah. They're like, if we're going to do it, let's do it right.
Yeah.
I want to touch on the patriotism that you were talking about, because I think that's something that has really stuck in Torrance. I mean, the Armed Forces Day Parade being something that we are so committed to doing every year, the Hometown Heroes banners, and everything like that. Why do you think that has stuck in Torrance? Because I don't feel like it has everywhere, and we don't have to get too much into that, but I feel like there's a lot of patriotism in Torrance, even now.
It's that sense of community, a sense of bonding, the fact that there's many people that have lived 60 years here like I have, and I attended the very first Armed Forces Day Parade in '59. No, there's a sense of community and a sense of pride, the fact that we are doing it right. We really do it right. There's a luncheon, but there's also a banquet for those servicemen that walked in the parade. And, the city council and city staff go, and we talk, and we thank them for their service. And it's really a very poignant affair. There's tens of thousands of people come out.
Yeah, it's a huge thing. I want to back up. You said you were at the very first one.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that and how that's changed?
I was like 8 years old.
I'm
sorry.
Old. Do you remember?
I just like the tanks going by, and all the people walking in formation and things like that. But boy, those parades used to be 3 hours long.
Oh yeah.
Because they'd have the cheerleaders come, and they'd have the dance companies come, and and everybody's organization wanted to be in that parade because there was such a beautiful public embrace of that parade. I can't tell you very much more. I do remember Omar Bradley came. I thought he came to the first one. I could be mistaken on that one.
Okay, we'll have to fact check you on that.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
What is something interesting that people might not know about Torrance's history? If you had like a fun fact that you...
Oh, I've got a lot of fun facts.
Okay, pick top 3.
Oh, I can't pick 3.
Okay, first one that comes to your mind.
The very first one's really easy. And that is the fact Jared Sidney Torrance never lived in Torrance.
Oh, really?
Never.
Where did he live?
He lived in Pasadena. He's got his house is still up there.
Interesting.
As a matter of fact. Now, his cousin lived here, and she started the first library, Isabel Henderson. But he never lived here. Oh, I've got so many. A lot of people don't know that AYSO was founded here in Torrance. A lot of people don't know about the Madrona Marsh being the only vernal marsh in all of South Bay. And it's quite a gem. I mean, Audubon societies come from everywhere to come and visit our marsh. A lot of people don't know that Dominguez Hills was originally supposed to be built here in Torrance.
Was that with the Dominguez family you were talking about before? Is that where that connection is?
Well, no. Dominguez Hills, that's just a name because it's in Carson, and Dominguez family donated the land, but it was originally supposed to be in Torrance, right above Hawthorne Boulevard, above PCH.
Okay.
So that would have been a real jewel.
Do you feel like you know most of this from your time with the Historical Society, or just from your time with all the different organizations, or from like actually living here and being here for some of these major things?
Nicole, I've been a student of history for all my life, and I love history. It's one of my favorite subjects. So it's a little everything. It's a little bit of living here, a little of everything. One last one.
Okay.
I give you one last
Okay.
one. But remember when I was describing the annexations?
Yes.
And it was a good idea, you know. Otherwise, Gardena would have picked up North Torrance. Gardena was sniffing at North Torrance like you wouldn't believe. Redondo Beach wanted West Torrance. But one thing in the 30s, the entire PV Peninsula was offered to Torrance.
Really?
The entire PV Peninsula. We had just gotten that little swatch where Torrance Beach is. The city fathers at the time didn't want it.
Really?
It was vacant. There were no trees there. But to think that they had to provide fire and police service to that very, very rural and depopulated area, they thought, you know, provide them water, provide them electricity, police and fire.
That's crazy.
Because that translates right now into the same thoughts about El Camino Village and Alondra Park. Very controversial. It costs more to maintain it, if you will. New police station, maybe a new fire station, plus everything else. That's for the politicians to decide.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, there's a parallel there.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
So those are I had to get one extra in.
Yeah, no, those were very fun facts. I didn't know most of those, I think, maybe all of them. You moved here in 1954, and a year later, the city won an award. If you want to touch on that?
Oh, I'd love to elaborate on that, because it's a culmination of how Torrance mirrors American values. In 1955, Look magazine was the Life magazine of the time, awarded Torrance the All-America City Award. Competition from cities throughout the United States. And they awarded it because of the depth of our planning and, civic pride, civic government. The mayor at the time, Albert Eisen, had thousands of school children from Torrance write letters on behalf of why Torrance is such a great city. And we won the prize. And as a matter of fact, to this day, we're still celebrating it. And, the Torrance Historical Society, of which I'm a member, on the third Thursday of every July, we do a celebration called Rock Around the Block. We have an old car show, we have yo-yo acts, we have dancing, we have games, we have cakewalks, and it's a really a wonderful thing. And people come, they walk their dogs, they bring their kids, but it's really a great time. So that, Torrance has that history and civic pride that I think that shows that we're still celebrating.
Yeah, I feel like in so many of the stories that we've covered on little events like that, like there's the holiday stroll downtown, there's Rock Around the Block, the Halloween trunk or treat, getting interviews there and talking to people about why they come or where they're from, if they're visiting, if they live here, it makes me appreciate our city so much more when I get to see how many people are loving it and what it does for the people that live here or visit here. Just events like that really show the community.
Thank you, Nicole.
Awesome. How do you think Torrance now aligns with American values, traditionally or progressively? And it can be the same way that it did when it started, if that's your answer.
I think Torrance has become a more diverse community. And I think that's really important. Back in the 1960s, the Congress of Racial Equality and people like Harry Belafonte and other dignitaries came and, marched around because at the time, this was in West Torrance then, but at the time, not unlike what my father had in his mortgage in 1954, was an exclusionary thing that said you cannot sell this house to people of color. And that's what CORE came in the 1960s to protest. And eventually those things were stricken, eventually by Supreme Court decision. But the fact of the matter is, now Torrance is very diverse. Japanese and Koreans and blacks and Mexican Americans. That makes for not unlike the entire United States, back to your question, makes for a more diverse community with many different cultural touchstones, if you will.
Yeah.
So.
I love that. What do you want generations now, like my generation and future generations, to take away from watching this podcast, possibly?
An appreciation of history, an appreciation of where we've been and where we're going, where we are now. I think that's really important because I think you have to be informed about these things in order to appreciate and know which direction we should be going. And I'm not advocating any particular direction here, but what I'm saying is the knowledge is key, is paramount. The knowledge is what we need in order to make these decisions, informed decisions about where we're going. And so I think people of your generation are doing a good thing by watching this podcast.
I love it. Is there anything else you want to add or share? Anything from your notes that you missed out on or anything?
No.
Well, thank you so much for coming, and thank you everyone for watching, and please stay tuned with our America's 250th podcast series. We're going to have a few more guests on for you guys on YouTube and on City Cable.